The Order Divine Domain is all about the law, following the law and making other people also follow the law. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner and welcome back to the RPG Daily, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. Now today we're talking about the Order Divine Domain Clerics. Of course, as always, I want you to let me know in the comments what you think about this Divine Domain so I can compare them all a little bit later on. So what exactly is the Order Domain and why does it matter? Well, the Order Domain is all about discipline and strict obedience to the law. That's it in a nutshell. The interesting side of this is the ideals behind obedience and following the law do not leave room for questioning the moral standing of the law or the justice that's actually there. It is you follow the word of the law and that's it. This strict adherence to the laws creates kind of a hierarchy. You have leaders and you have followers. That creates order. That is this divine domain. As clerics of order, you're going to be around keeping people following the laws. This would be a very interesting kind of divine domain to play in a party with rogues who have a tendency to break the law, for example. It could be an interesting thing to just throw into an evil campaign, for example, just in general, because these guys are all about following the law of the land, more I should say. A couple well-known deities of the Order Divine Domain are Tyr, Erathis, and Judge Dredd. Now, how does this divine domain actually work? Getting into the spells of the Order Divine Domain, of course we know you're going to get new spells at different levels as you grow in power as a cleric, and you'll see with this one, a lot of these spells rely, or the effect of these spells, it has a lot to do with you getting other people to do what you want them to do in a persuasive or law ordering way, I should say. At level 1, you get the spells Command and Heroism. Heroism is not a normal cleric spell, but it's basically a buff against being frightened. That's pretty useful. Command, however, lets you command a creature, or enemy, or a person, whatever you want to call it, with a one-word command, and they have to accomplish that as long as you don't tell them to kill themselves, for example, or hurt themselves. At level 3, you get Hold Person and Zone of Truth, which are both standard cleric spells. Hold Person does exactly what the name says it does. Zone of Truth, however, is really useful for interrogations. When you cast it, it creates a 15-foot sphere, and any creatures caught inside it that fail a saving throw cannot tell a lie. A couple stipulations of this, though, is when people get this spell cast on them and are under the influence, they know. Which means when you ask them a question, they don't have to answer, they just can't lie to you. So I've used this to my own advantage in games, and I've known other people who've used it to their own advantage in games. Also, it's this kind of a loophole of this spell is, yes, you cannot lie, but you also don't have to tell everything. You don't have to volunteer all the information. So be aware of that as a player, if you ever get stuck in the Zone of Truth. And also be aware of that as a DM, if you get an NPC stuck in a Zone of Truth, you are not suddenly a truth-telling, volunteer all the information machine. At level 5, you get Mass Healing Word and Slow. Slow is not a normal cleric spell, but it has some interesting effects that I wanted to touch on. When you cast it on a creature, their time is essentially slowed down to about half speed. The effect is more than just them moving slowly through the world, it affects everything about them. Their armor class is done with a -2 modifier. Any saving throws also have a -2 applied to them, compared to what they were normally. Also, when affected by slow, the creature, enemy, or ally cannot use reactions throughout the combat. And even worse, on their turn, when normally you could use an action and a bonus action, now you can only do one or the other. This also affects spellcasting time. They take a little longer. So slow is a really interesting thing. If you're able to slow one creature down or several creatures down in a combat situation, it can boost your party's ability a lot. At level 7, you get the spells Compulsion and Locate Creature. Compulsion is not a cleric spell normally, but it does have some interesting uses. Essentially how it works, you target a creature, you cast Compulsion on them, they have to make a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, then on your turn, for the duration of the spell, as a bonus action, you can tell them a direction to move in. That's all, a direction. They are then compelled to move that direction on their turn. During their turn, they can still do the rest of their turn. So they can take their own actions, they can do bonus actions, whether it's casting a spell or attacking something, but during that turn they will have to move in that direction. And it also doesn't say they have to move at the front of their turn or at the end of their turn. It's their choice. The only stipulation of this is they will not move into dangerous places. At level 9, the cleric will get Commune and Dominate Person. Dominate Person is a lot like Dominate Beast, but you use it on people. But Commune is a normal cleric spell, but it's kind of neat, so let's talk about that a little bit. Commune lets you, when you cast the spell, you're able to ask your deity 3 questions. Yes or no questions, and they should answer you as truthfully as they can. The thing is, not all deities are omniscient. Yeah, that's the word for it. So they don't always know the answer to every question. This also plays into the fact that the DM might not know all the answers to all the questions you as a player have. So you might end up getting some answers that you're not quite happy with. You might get some answers that are vague, as in like a shrug. But if you ask clear, direct, yes or no questions that your deity might actually know about, you're likely to get some good answers. As I said before, you see these spells are almost all about getting other people to do what you want them to do. It's about order, it's command and keeping things, people following the laws and maintaining order in the world. Now let's talk about the features. At level 1, you get a bonus proficiency of heavy armor, so congratulations, you can have some chainmail if you'd like, and you have a choice between new proficiency in skills, the intimidation or persuasion skills. Now, how you choose to play your character is up to you. Both of these are perfectly good ways to get someone to do what you would like them to do. At level 1, you also get the ability Voice of Authority. Now, this is a cool way to get your ally to do something you want them to do, specifically hit an enemy. So how this works is whenever you cast a spell on an ally, for example, a healing spell, they can then use their reaction to attack a nearby enemy that's in range. Pretty simple, straightforward thing. You heal them, they hit something. It's a great way to compel them to act on your behalf, I guess you could say. I like this one because it reminds me of 4th edition. I played a warlord, and you had a lot of these abilities that I would hit a thing and then it would allow my ally to hit the thing also. It never worked out how I wanted because I wasn't good at communicating. But I also remember I would heal everyone with Rub Some Dirt in it. So if you've ever used Rub Some Dirt in it, that was my favorite healing ability from 4th edition in the brief time that I played it. Good stuff. That's what this kind of feature reminded me of. That's why I went on that little tangent. At level 2, you get your new channel divinity, which this one is called Order's Demand, which seems kind of underwhelming because it's essentially just a mass charm creature. They're charmed, you don't get to dominate them, you don't get to control them, but in another way, it is a really good way to demand an audience very quickly. If you're like in a crowded place, you can get everyone's attention with your deity's help. At level 6, you get the ability Embodiment of the Law. What this ability does is it enhances your enchantment spell abilities. How this works is whenever you choose to use Embodiment of the Law and you cast a spell that is enchantment with a casting time of 1 action, that spell instead only takes a bonus action to cast. Of course, this ability has limited uses as well, which is equal to your Wisdom ability modifier. At level 8, like so many other clerics, you get your Divine Strike ability. For the Order Domain cleric, you're able to add 1d8 psychic damage to a weapon attack once per turn, and at level 14, that is boosted up to 2d8 psychic damage. At level 17, you get the ability Order's Wrath. Now, this is an interesting way to kind of dogpile a character or focus fire an enemy down, however you want to call it. Essentially, what this means is when you hit an enemy and you use your Divine Strike on it to cause it damage, which at this point will be 2d8 damage, psychic damage, you can also curse that enemy, and then when an ally or the next creature that hits that also damages an extra 2d8 damage on that attack. And so you can do this, and it just like focus fires and it encourages some team play here. You know, team mechanics and working as a group is kind of vital to the game in my opinion, and it's one of the more fun things. And this is one of those areas that this can really shine, to say, I hit it for 2d8 and now it's cursed, and you hit it for 2d8, we all hit it for 2d8, that kind of thing. Thinking of things to add into this domain, I didn't really see a whole lot of feats that really stood out as this could be really cool. Shield Master might work, as you can shove people around the battlefield. So if you Divine Strike somebody, use your shield to push them in the way of an ally, then the ally hits them and gets their extra 2d8. Something like that could come into play, I think. but I didn't see a whole lot that stood out as like must-have feats. There were a couple things that did stand out to me about this domain though. One was the teamwork and the social skills, which made me think this type of cleric could work in a party where there is no face character. A face being someone who's more socially skilled and talkative. Having the persuasion or intimidation, proficiency would be a big help. I think that might play into it, and you could potentially also stack a little more of your ability score into charisma, for example, instead of other ability scores you might have. Obviously, wisdom is always going to be the number one for clerics, but charisma could play a good number second, I think, with this specific domain. I would also probably pick spells from the cleric list that deal more with enchantment and social interaction if I were to do that, so then I could be the talker and I could go around and maintain order in the towns I'm in. I think that would just be dandy. Anyway, that is the Order Divine Domain Cleric. I hope you like this rundown. I've been Richard. Thanks for watching.